2015 at 2 p.m. in council chambers. So we're going to do the adoption of some minutes first. Committee of the Whole minutes from July the 6th, 2015, and regular open minutes of July the 6th, 2015, and those will be adopted by consensus. There were some resolutions from the closed meeting of July the 6th that we are going to bring out of release from in camera, and I'll read them. One is a bylaw enforcement tender, motion IC 98-15, moved by Councillor Youngberg, seconded by Councillor King, and resolved that the bylaw enforcement tender be awarded to DELEGATIONS Enforcement Services for the period of July the 16th, 2015 to December 31st, 2015, with a month-to-month renewal clause, if needed, at a cost of $24.39 per hour plus GST. And that was carried. And the second one was the public washroom caretaker contract, motion IC 99-15, moved by Councillor Campbell and seconded by Councillor Rhodes, and resolved that Council approves that Evergreen Building Maintenance be awarded the public washroom caretaker contract for Gyro Beach and Cottonwood from July the 16th to December the 31st, 2015, in the amount of $2,750 per month, and for all the other washrooms from July the 16th to October the 15th, 2015, in the amount of $3,100 per month. And that was also carried. So, business arising from prior minutes. I don't believe we have anything. And introduction of late items. Mr. Manco, did we want to?
Yes, we have one item under water matters. It is an update on the water restrictions.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a resolution, please, to add that to the agenda and have the adopted agenda? Okay, the agenda will be adopted as amended. That is Campbell Rhodes. All in favor? Thank you. No delegations, and we have water matters. And so the Water District's 8 and 9 financial accounts, Water District cash requirements to July the 20th are in the amount of $37,971.67. And could we have a seconder? Okay, that would be Councillor Moreira, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor? Thank you. And now, Mr. Romanko.
Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. At Council's June 1st meeting, the following motion was passed. Moved by Councillor Rhodes, seconded by Councillor King, and resolved the Council approves enacting Stage 2 twice-a-week watering as provided in the Water Conservation and Stage Restrictions Bylaw number 1273. This report is an update on the results of the restrictions since implementation. Metered water use for the community illustrates a decrease in use when one compares water consumption figures from 2014 and 2015. Although this is not a definite indicator that the water restrictions are working, it is a positive indicator. This decrease is only viewed as a positive indicator because not all factors have been factored into the analysis. For example, the impacts of moving the high school to recycled water, and the question, were there any fires last year at this time that may have caused increased water consumption. Certainly the weather was hotter so far this year, so water consumption illustrating lower use is a positive indicator. There appears to be good cooperation from a majority of citizens. 2. Water use may be down, but legal watering on all the allowed nights has gone up. The amount of increase on these allowed nights is causing some concern. So far, no issues have been identified with our pumping and reservoir infrastructure. The amount of drawdown on our reservoirs is a minor concern, especially if you run into a situation where there may need to be a large fire on a watering night. Number 3, 13% of our budgeted bylaw time has been used to respond to water matters, including following up on complaints. This amount of bylaw time is for enforcement situation. This amount of bylaw time for enforcement situations is unsustainable if we wish to meet our other bylaw objectives. Additional bylaw resources have been allocated to deal with targeted areas, being A, watering during peak heat and restricted times, B, watering on restricted days, C, responding to complaints, and D, general patrolling of the community. And just to add to that, in terms of our enforcement strategy that we've been employing, is basically we'll have the bylaw person come to the door. It'll always be a face-to-face communication. We won't be leaving things on the door, but at the same time, we'll be coming to the door, providing a warning ticket and also information on the watering restrictions bylaw. That particular property will then be noted and will be reviewed in the future. And in the event that there is another infraction, the MTI fine of $200 per day will be implemented. The next item is many comments have been received that the town residents are doing their share, but domestic watering in irrigation districts 8 and 9 continue in a normal fashion. Public recommendations have been made that council consider implementing similar domestic water restrictions in the irrigation district 8 and 9. Drought conditions are viewed as a valley-wide concern. Therefore, all residents need to participate in water conservation actions. Implications: the Okanagan Valley has been identified as a drought-impacted area. All citizens need to be aware of this situation and assist with water conservation. Organizationally, organization impacts are focused on staff resources to implement bylaw enforcement and respond to inquiries. Budget, advertising, and bylaw funds have been allocated. Significant dates: no date for water restrictions end has been identified. Sustainability: water conservation is an important element to environmental sustainability. So the options: 1, continue the Phase 2 watering restrictions in town. 2, consider additional restrictions in town. 3, consider new domestic water restrictions for irrigation districts 8 and 9. In terms of a recommendation, no additional water restrictions for the town are recommended at this time. Staff will continue to monitor the community's water use. Council may consider implementing domestic water restrictions in irrigation district 8 and 9. Council has this authority under Bylaw 1241, 2008, Section 6, Article 2, which I have within the report, which states, notwithstanding subsection 1, the town is authorized to suspend, regulate, or stop the supply of water by council resolution to any or all users at any time, whenever public interest may require it.
Thank you very much. I went home for lunch today and turned on the news, and Vancouver has now gone into the next stage of watering restrictions, which means no lawn watering starting tomorrow. So that's a pretty big step to take. It means that no car washing, no watering your driveways or your house or anything. You can still hand water your flowers or vegetables with a hose, but you cannot use any kind of sprinklers. So it's becoming quite an issue around the province. It's not getting any easier. I think from what I heard, there's going to be thunderstorms and perhaps some rain and hail over in the Kootenays. Doesn't affect us, I don't think. It would be very nice to have a couple of days of good rain to make everybody feel better, but at this point we don't see it in the future. So we're spending a fair amount of time, and I say we, council, as well as staff, and they're quite concerned about the water restrictions. Quite concerned about, I'm doing my part, but my neighbors are not paying attention and not doing their part, and so it is a concern for all of us. There are some people in areas 8, Pump House 8 and 9, who are not on these same restrictions, but because they're not part of the town, although that could be enacted at some time. I would just hope that everybody is listening to the concerns, that's the drought concerns in the province, the fact that we're concerned about perhaps not having fishing in the lake, although I see that was announced last week that there was not going to be salmon fishing, and now they're not quite sure yet. So all of those kinds of things contribute to us doing our best to be considerate of where we're using water, how much we're using water, and if everybody is thoughtful and uses common sense, then it would make it easier. So if you see somebody who's blatantly not using their water the wrong way, which I did to one of my neighbors, and I just went down and asked and said, here's the reason why, and he was extremely accepting of it, and it wasn't a problem at all. But I just think we all need to kind of do our bit and try and be as considerate as possible. And even if you're not on watering restrictions, which is in the town, please think about how you're using water, because it all comes out of the same pot. So we need to be very careful about that. I'm just wondering if anybody else on council would like to say anything about it. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. Well, you covered pretty much everything I wanted to say about it. One of the situations that was brought to light today was the District 8 and 9 situation, and I think this would be an excellent opportunity for us to have a little bit of a discussion about it. And I need more information. I'm all for water restrictions under all conditions, everywhere. But sometimes there's mitigating circumstances that come up, or things that change people's ideas and opinions about things. And I'd like to perhaps hear from our water councillor about how he feels about water restrictions in District 8 and 9, and because he would be our expert, and maybe he can enlighten us a little bit about it.
Good.
On 8 and 9, most of the water, or I'll say about 80% of the water users, say for lawns, gardens, and that, come right off their main line, off their sprinkler system. Rarely you have anybody coming off the taps off the house. So, in some cases, you'll have rows of trees going right through their lawns and that. They use that as decoration. Where I used to live, all my yard is surrounded by fruit trees, which ran off the orchard, and we use that as lawn. And you'll find quite a few of them do that.
So that makes sense for people that have large acreage and orchard or vineyard or ground crop. What about people that are just in residential neighborhoods in those that use 8 and 9? How do you feel about that? Or is that too?
Well, you'd hate sort of penalize those, the ones out in the orchard using it. Like I said, stuff that doesn't make too much sense to me.
Because they're all.
You
couldn't separate it.
You're segregating. And,
okay.
And they're also on the water advisory, boil water advisory right now anyway. So to give them a double whammy, go buy water but you can't water your lawn.
Councillor Campbell.
Were we talking about the acre to the property, or whether it be commercial or residential? These are two different things we're talking about.
Well, I'm thinking that Councillor Moreira is saying that it's all intertwined and it would be hard to separate one from the other. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it does seem that in residential neighborhoods where there's just housing, that it should be easier to enact some sort of restrictions. No? You're saying it's too difficult?
No, I'm sure it is. But just my opinion, if I was in that residential area and I'm paying for the same amount of water, and my neighbor beside me happens to have an orchard, needs water, I'd have a bit of problems with that.
Yeah, I totally I understand for sure. Anybody else want to? Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
So 100% of the water is drawn out of the lake.
100%.
100%. The largest percentage goes to irrigation
Yes.
for farming components, and then there's domestic water use on top of that. I can see the complexity of separating the two of them, but does water restrictions because of the drought situation that we're in, does that not come a little bit higher than the complexities of trying to separate the two of them? Because when you have the bylaw that restricts water use, it's very specific about where it applies, you know, to people's lawns and stuff like that, and the type of irrigation and when you can irrigate and all that type of thing. That would be a huge contribution from those rural residents towards water conservation. And when you have these two situations, about one being complex because you can't separate the two of them, and you have water restrictions, which one is more important? That's kind of where I'm leading with my arguments and that kind of thing. Any contribution that anybody can make towards water conservation, and one of them being not watering your darn lawns, is a very, very positive situation in my opinion. And that's a pretty compelling argument when you look at, well, how do I separate it? And I understand, but water restrictions are important when you're in a serious drought situation. I know you're very aware of what the future has for us. You mentioned that to me earlier. We could be in for the long haul here, and more than likely are, because there's no indications of change in our weather or anything like that. So that's a pretty compelling argument when you think about it that way.
Yes, it is. But if I had a neighbor just watering, and I'm right across from him, and I'm not allowed to, that's quite an argument too. He's paying exactly the same amount of money.
Every day of the week, every resident in Osoyoos has that exact same problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
And there's no doubt about that.
yeah.
So there will be somebody paid for out of the water fund that is going to go around, as Mr. Romanko said, and talk to people that are not abiding by the rules, and give them a warning, and give them some information about this, and suggest that that if it happens again and they are caught, then it will then there will be a fine. I'm wondering if it's worth having the bylaw officer also attend some of the areas in Pump House 8 and 9 areas, and suggests that they could cut back on their watering, or give them some information about it. Maybe that's a first start on it. Yes.
I have a suggestion. Send them letters saying if consumption keeps going up, then there could be water restrictions.
Yes, well, I'm thinking that this is sort of the same thing as is going around with a card, which is what we're going to be giving out to people, I think, with including that. We're hoping that the papers will make people aware of this as well, and put it in the news articles that we really need to cut down. So where are we at? Are we going to go by the recommendation here, and with the proviso that it is possible in the future, just like Vancouver did today, and they don't have to wait 2 weeks. They're enacting it tomorrow, so they can do it right away, that there is no watering. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you again. So I'm very interested in the 8 and 9 situation, and to see, I understand the impact that it has on residents, because we've definitely been through that with all of the residents in the town of Osoyoos. When we started off on this thing, it kind of looked like we were being very forceful in the way that we were doing things. And as the drought conditions have continued, not only in Osoyoos, but all through certainly southern British Columbia, it makes us look proactive instead of reactive in what we did. So we have a lot of experience with this type of situation, and it's never ever to impact the farming community. Although I do have to say that when you hear complaints about people misusing water, I would say an incredibly high percentage of them are with the farming community in our valley as a whole. You know, watering highways and roadways and stuff like that is just not an acceptable situation anymore. And so I would like possibly a couple of weeks to think this over a little bit more. I don't feel a real urgency to do it today. I think it's an important thing, and you know, my desire would be to, you know, a little bit of sober second thought about it over the next couple of weeks. A lot of the pushback that we're going to get is, well, then, you know, the summer's almost over and everything's going to correct itself. But I don't really see that happening. This is a good education process for all of us in case we have a drought that continues throughout the year. And then if we have one next spring, at least we're prepared. So another couple of weeks to think this through about some of the pros and cons is definitely kind of where I'm at right now.
And thank you, Councillor Rhodes. And I agree. And watering in the middle of the day, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, is really a waste of water because most of it's just being evaporated. So that's certainly something that everybody could do, including orchards, I would think. I don't see that that's necessary to water in the middle of the day, is it? It is?
We're on Mistress.
Oh.
It's under the ground, under
Well,
the trees.
no, that wasn't what I saw just coming back from me. It was the sprinklers that were on. So I think we need to all be very, very much aware of this, when we're watering, what and how much we're watering, and just the general use of water. But I do like Councillor Rhodes' suggestion. Mr. Romanko, did you have something?
Yes, just to add, in terms of making a decision like this, certainly I think because we take a look at our governance situation with 2 water councillors, that it would be important that both water councillors be present for a decision like this. And given that this topic is kind of an add-on to the agenda and Councillor Ray is not here, certainly I think when it comes to decision time that we should ensure that both the water councillors are here to be involved in the discussion.
Absolutely, good point. I do think as well that we need to make sure that at the end of the season, or the watering season this year, that we get a good report back from staff on what was used, how it was used, how many complaints there were, what were the issues, and really, because we could be in the same position next year, and we certainly want to be ready to have things lined up and know what we're dealing with. I do know that, speaking to the Mayor of Summerland, that they start off the season right away by going to every second day. They don't even entertain you know, full watering anytime you want, and because I think they've dealt with this before. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Was there anyone else? Yeah, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you again, Mayor McKortoff. Could I ask that we have a report at the next meeting that would open the opportunity for debate on it?
Okay, so but knowing that the next meeting is the second, there is no first meeting in August, so
Right.
it would.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
4 weeks, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could then perhaps make sure that both water councillors are here at that time? Okay. Could we?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we could request that they both be
Can I,
here.
if you put that in a resolution? it'll-
Absolutely.
I'll second it.
Are you making the resolution?
Yes.
Yes. and seconded. So did you get that, Ms. Scott? Does that make sense to you, Councillor Murner?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's okay with me.
Thank you. So the recommendation that you have here, is that being, we're going to go ahead with a different recommendation, the one that you had on the,
Well, my
that was just suggestions?
that was that was my recommendation, that nothing change in the town for now, and council may want to consider something in the future given that. So
Right.
certainly bringing a report back at the second meeting in August would be following the recommendation
Absolutely.
for consideration.
And inviting,
Yes.
making sure that both water councillors are here.
Yes.
Okay, so have we got that, Ms. Scott? Okay. All in favor of that motion? Thank you very much. So there's no correspondence, no bylaws, and the first item under the business is a council meeting report, and it's and it was for me, so I won't recommend my own. Would somebody please move the adoption of that? Councillor Youngberg, Councillor King, all in favor? Thank you. Next is the acting mayor schedule. Is that Mr. Romanko? Are
Yes.
you going to do that?
Yes,
Thank
I'll
you.
do that. Under the council procedures bylaw and the community charter, council is required to appoint an acting mayor. Council made acting mayor appointments in December 2014 for the 2015 term. Councillor Rhodes and Councillor Youngberg require changes to their acting mayor schedules in order that Councillor Youngberg will take on the acting mayor role for the month of August and Councillor Rhodes for the month of September. In terms of implications, leadership provided in the mayor's absence, no organizational, no budget issues, changes, significant dates, changes for the month of August and September 2015. The options are that council approves changing the acting mayor schedule so that Councillor Youngberg is appointed acting mayor for the month of August 2015 and Councillor Rhodes is appointed acting mayor for the month of September 2015.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
I'll move to accept option number 1.
Thank you. Councillor King, seconded. All in favor? Thank you. That was just a housekeeping item. Next is the water conservation exemption request from Home Hardware. Mr. Manko.
Okay, so council passed the following motion at its June 1st meeting, that there be stage 2 twice a week watering as provided in the water conservation and stage restrictions bylaw 1273. The water restrictions bylaw provides the CEO limit authority to provide exemptions based on physical and mental incapacity of residents to water at directed times and special permits for new sod. Sections of the bylaw relevant to this request are cited below, and in terms of prohibitions and inspection, no person being an owner or occupier of a property shall use water or cause water to be used contrary to the provisions of this bylaw in effect at the use of this time. 2, no person shall waste water by using more water than is required to provide a service, produce a product, or complete a task, including but limited to allowing a tap or hose to run water unnecessarily over watering plants or lawns. 3, a bylaw enforcement officer has the authority to enter at all reasonable times on any property that is subject to this bylaw to ascertain whether the requirements of this bylaw are being met or the regulations in this bylaw are being observed. Another provision is stage 2 twice a week watering, and I'm sure that everybody in the room here is familiar with twice a week watering, so maybe I won't bother reading that if that's okay with council.
That's fine.
Okay. Attached, please find a letter from Soyuz Home Hardware requesting the use of water misting device in front of their building. This device appears to be different from the device that is being historically used in front of their building. In a previous report, administration discussed the opportunities to provide exemptions to the bylaw based on health and safety of persons and economic sustainability of business. Council has previously provided permitted exemption to assist with economic sustainability of a business through the permitting of building power washing. The development of any bylaw can't legislatively address all potential situations that may be drawn into consideration under the bylaw. In this situation, the use of personal misters is not specifically addressed, although the use of micro-irrigation of plants is probably the closest parallel to this situation. What is addressed in the bylaw is the desire to conserve water and prohibit to waste water by using more water than is needed to complete a task. In this situation, the request is to have an appliance consistently operating with a water use factor of approximately half a gallon per hour. The purpose is to provide minimal personal cooling to persons or animals in a public space. The appliance will be spraying water consistently with no motion control or sensor. In terms of implications, the community is under a Stage 2 water restriction that is impacting normal water activities. Although no identified shortage of water is evident in Suyas, Council is illustrating a leadership role in conserving water as other communities in BC due to drought conditions. Organizationally, activities relate to bylaw enforcement and response to public inquiries. No bylaw implications. Significant dates, still no date for the Stage 2 water restriction to end. And sustainability water conservation is viewed as a major sustainability activity. Two options have been provided. One is approve the requested use of a personal misting device through issuing a permit. Two, deny the request to use a personal misting device as requested. The administration actually recommends option number 2 as supported by the dialogue in the report, and option number 2 is to deny the request. The request doesn't appear to be a situation where health or economic sustainability risks need to be considered. The minor temporary relief doesn't warrant an exemption that it undermines the intent of the bylaw. Although water use is minimal, the message being provided to the community is negative to the overall goals of the bylaw. Administration recommends that this situation be recorded and taken into consideration in an overall review of the bylaw. However, the situation doesn't require immediate approval.
Thank you. And the letter is on the board up there from Home Hardware, and they are asking for an exemption on this. This is a tricky one. They're not using very much water. It's not a health and safety issue. It's, I guess, a bit of an economic driver to the business because people go by there. But I don't know how we can deal with this one, and I'm open to any councillor who would like to speak on this matter. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. I was just wondering, I don't know if you know much about this, Mr. Remenko, but would there be able to put a sensor device on it where just when people go by it could be used? Do you know?
I don't know. You know, that's like I said, from my kind of just knowledge of walking by there, what has been presented as their proposal for a misting device is different than they have there. Okay. And so the device that they're illustrating here isn't one of those curly little hoses that with no sensor. So I imagine it's possible, but that's not what the ask is.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me the other day about our splash park, and they said, well, how can you allow that to continue? But that is that the water comes on there and it's activated by somebody being there. Okay. So when there is no one there, the water does not come on. One of the other things that was mentioned was the fountain in front of the town hall. Now, and that is recycled water. It's not new water, so it's in there, and it's totally recycled all the time. But people are going to ask because they're going to notice. So we just want to make sure that people know that. Anybody else like to? Yes, Councillor Youngberg.
Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. I just have a real difficult time with this because I have been witnessing young children and animals taking some heat off of their bodies just from this little bit of mist that's going on. And I know that it contravenes our bylaw, but I just wonder if it isn't helping some of the people that are suffering so much from the heat that we have in the community. And I understand Frances does so much for our community, and I just sort of think that this is another thing she's doing to try and make it just a little bit more tolerable for the shoppers that are in the area. Often people don't even enter her store. They just go by and get a little bit of a relief and keep on going. So I'm not sure what I should do, but I just feel bad because I think that it does help some individuals and definitely the children.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Just to Councillor Youngberg's point, and that's a very valid point. But I think we need to consider here, and we're challenged with, is we're dealing with a member of our community whose business goes well above and beyond in almost every occasion to get involved and help and promote our community. And I think that's part of what makes this decision difficult, but I think as we have this discussion and decide, we need to treat this as if it's any business, big or small in town, and not consider those other contributions, because I think that that's unfair.
Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. Sometimes when these reports come and these requests and these various kinds of asks, sometimes the simplest ones are the ones that you struggle with the most. And like everyone else on council, I've certainly struggled with this one. I've known about it for a couple of weeks now, and I think that everybody is absolutely right. One of the roles that we fill as councillors in this community is to, look at all of the situations and weigh all the pros and cons and that type of thing. And, at the end of the day, everybody's right. All of the ideas and opinions are good. However, we do have a bylaw that's in place. And, I said it in the earlier conversation that we had about the irrigation districts 8 and 9. Any contribution that any individual can make towards water conservation, whether it's an ounce of water or a swimming pool full of water, is a very, very positive thing in the situation that we're in right now. I know it's only a half a gallon. That's hardly anything. You can sit down and drink half a gallon of water in 20 minutes if you want. But really, at the end of the day, it's a half a gallon of water that goes towards our water conservation pool. And, it's regrettable that it's here, but every citizen and every business in our community has to participate in this situation in a positive way, or we're never going to get to the goals that we're trying to achieve by this. And finally, I'd like to say, this council and this mayor and the staff that are sitting in this room, we didn't create this drought. This is not our drought. This is Mother Nature, wreaking havoc on our water supplies. We're reacting to it in a very, very positive way by, bringing down these bylaws and these things that we feel are the best way to do it. We're getting proven results, and I think that we need to carry on, whether it's a glass of water or a lake full of water, and stay with it. So with that in mind, I'd like to support the recommendation from staff for option number 2. That would be my resolution.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? I can second the motion. So it is open for any comments, any debate on this. It is a tricky one. It's definitely something that we have all water issues, staff and council, public works, we've spent a great deal of time on. So there's never an easy answer for this. Yes, Mr. Manko.
With this going to vote, one of my suggestions is that, similar to what was done with the in the last meeting with the power washing, that this become, if this resolution does not pass and the situation comes about that this request is permitted, that it be done, that the CEO be provided the ability to provide permits for this particular type of activity. Because as mentioned in the pre-debate, this is not only about one business, because I have had other businesses make this specific request, and rather than have every business come to council, in sense, council is setting policy direction by providing this recommendation. So by making a resolution that this become a permanent activity, and then we should probably set some criteria in around that permanent activity.
similar to what you did for the last one that came?
That's right.
So in other words, the business would then come and request hours, and it would be you that would make the decision.
Well, what I would do is I would issue the permit based on council's direction.
Okay.
Unlike a water czar that makes decisions on their own, I'm acting under the direction of council.
Absolutely.
And the direction of council would provide me the criteria. If there are specific hours, then that would become part of the direction of council.
I'm thinking that's starting to look like a nice compromise there, and I'm wondering if there could be specific hours to having something, a business requiring this, perhaps the middle of the afternoon, or certainly maybe not the morning. So I think that to me makes sense. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Councillor Younger? You?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes, Mayor McKortoff, I think that's a good idea. I mean, there has to be some consideration, I think, given to the fact that we have very, very hot weather, and it's very miserable for the kids, the animals, and the shoppers downtown. I think any kind of small amounts of water during the heat of the day really helps.
So, Mr. Romanko, if this was, do you think that, should we have a motion on the floor?
Yeah, a motion on the floor.
Should we deal with that first? So the motion was to go with recommendation number 2, to deny the request to use a personal misting device as requested. So, all in favor of that motion?
Okay.
Thank you. Then I'm assuming the rest are not. Councillor Rhodes is in favor. Oh, okay, hang on. We need to take, so that all against the motions, or we don't have to do that part? No. All in favor is one. Therefore, the motion is defeated.
No, you need a vote.
Okay. So the vote was that Councillor Rhodes is supporting the motion.
And
so
all
now
those
Oh.
You want to speak to the motion before we vote on it? I've already asked for the question, so can we, I think we'd better go through this one. Am I correct? All right, so now anybody who disagrees with that motion. Okay, so that was defeated. Now, Councillor Rhodes, did you want to speak now, or did somebody want to make a different motion?
Well, speaking to the motion after the fact is a little unusual, so no.
Oh, okay. So, Councillor King, would you?
Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. I'd like a motion that we allow this home hardware to use their mister between, say, 1 and 4 o'clock in the daytime.
By way of permit.
By a permit issued.
I'm wondering if it would be better to allow, say that it has to come to a permit and allow Mr. Romanko to, or would you like us to set some guidelines?
We want to set the guidelines, don't we?
Yes,
you asked for us to set the guidelines.
I would. Right. The administration needs the direction of council in terms of, and again, going back to my previous comment, is this action a permit action only for the Suyas Home Hardware, or is it for other businesses that maybe want to address this, or even take a look at a situation where home use, because there's a number of people who use misters at home who technically would be offside as well, outside the bylaw. So if you're allowing misters for one, I guess the question becomes a broader issue, because I could be faced with people coming in the door and saying, I want to use my mister because it cools us off. We don't have air conditioning, or we don't have this.
A very small issue here, and it's become a huge one, hasn't it? Yes, Councillor Campbell.
Under the current bylaws and water restrictions, is there a situation where any business or any entity can use a mister right now?
No.
Restaurants, nothing.
not the way I interpret the bylaw, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but at the same time, it says a waste of water or the water running and at such a time when it's not providing a service. So if the water is providing a service,
So
That's
and I guess
a
that-
tricky
well,
one,
I guess
isn't
that's
it?
where I'm
Yeah.
torn. So,
Yeah.
because I do believe, especially in the hospitality sector, that, you know, we're dealing with mostly outdoor space. We're dealing with outdoor patios. You know, we know how tough it is with sustainable small businesses here based on the seasonality, and you've got a handful of months really to bring in your revenue. I'd be for having the discussion about issuing, to your question, is this a home hardware issue or is this an issue about misters as a whole? I think we need to have a discussion about misters as a whole, and if we put some parameters around that, as Councillor King had suggested, and I don't know if that's the right one or not, it's my feeling we should be having that discussion.
About misters in general, because they can all be purchased and put into their house.
If water meters become an impact down the road, people might not want to use misters.
Half a gallon.
Well,
Yeah, it isn't much.
And what would be the recommended fee for the permit?
there'll be no fee. It's just a matter of
Just a matter of
process.
processing.
Yeah.
So it does seem a little bit unfair to say to a restaurant who has an outdoor patio, you can use a mister because your patrons are sitting there, need to be cooled off, and yet another business can't use a mister because it's a slightly different issue. This
Interpretation.
Yeah, interpretation.
And we're hearing concerns about wasted water. We're talking about, you know, the concept of a motion detector, whatever the case is. I don't think that's realistic. I also don't think it's realistic for us to sit here and believe for a second that restaurant patios aren't using their misters under this situation right now. So, to me, it's in the act of fairness. I think we need to have a discussion about the peak heat of the day and the peak business times of the day, and come up with a resolution that would allow businesses to use misters, knowing, and to Councillor Rhodes' point, I understand that every little bit helps.
Yeah.
But you need to balance that with the sustainability of our small businesses in the community and some health benefits and comfort. So I think we need to have a discussion about, you know, setting specific hours and parameters to using misters.
Or the amount of water that's used in a mister rather than a hose that goes off, a small one. Maybe that makes a difference as well. Councillor Rhodes?
Just to interject another line of thought here, defeating that motion that was put on the floor does not give Home Hardware the permission to use those things at this point. So,
Correct.
you know, that's important for us to realize that.
Absolutely. So
Resolution has to be made for that.
has to be made a different resolution. So does anybody have a resolution? Councillor Campbell, have you thought of something that would make, that would be, you think would be acceptable concerning misters?
Yeah, I would make a resolution, have an amendment to include that misters could be used in commercial businesses between the hours of noon and 4 p.m.
And does this just include commercial businesses, or are we, as Mr. Emenko said, are we going to allow this in homes?
Commercial businesses.
Just commercial businesses?
That's the way I feel too.
And so are you seconding that? No? You want to speak to
No
it?
comment.
Okay.
comment.
So would somebody like to second that? I'll second it to bring out the comments. Would you like to speak, Councillor Rhodes?
Perhaps in a way of a friendly amendment to that, should mention that at 9 o'clock last night it was still 31 degrees, and misters are a valuable thing not only during the sunlight during the day, but if we're going to have them in restaurants, two of the restaurants that I know are definitely using them throughout the full day yesterday. So maybe a lengthening of that period of time would be better.
Yeah.
So are you looking at restaurant hours and the temperatures Would you be comfortable with going from noon till 9 p.m.? I would make that.
I would be comfortable with doing that as well. So for businesses from noon to 9 p.m. when needed. I mean, obviously it may not be every single day, but there certainly are days when it's hotter than others. And last night, you're right, it was 34 degrees at 10 o'clock or something.
And on a side note, just to Councillor Rhodes' point, and to what you just said, Mayor McKortoff, is we still have the hope that our local businesses and their owners, realizing that it's a day that's not extremely hot, would respect that and try to make that little bit of difference to help our cause.
So do I understand that any business that wishes to do this in your motion would need to come and apply to the town for, no? No. That was Mr. Remenko's suggestion.
To the water restriction.
Can we do that? Do an amendment to the water restriction without doing a special permit?
Well, you'd have to amend the bylaw.
You're amending the bylaw.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be a lot easier if, in terms of to enforce and legislatively to make this a permitted activity, because otherwise you're going to have to amend the bylaw and specifically put misters into the bylaw.
So you're suggesting it'd be easier to do by permit?
That's right.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And that's fine. If that makes more sense,
Yeah.
that's easier to deal with immediately, then yes, I would be okay with that too. So, do you have a motion there, Ms. Scott? Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Campbell, second by Mayor McKortoff, and resolved that Council approves the use of personal misting devices through issuing of a permit for use by commercial businesses between the hours of 12 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Is it 12 p.m. and 9 p.m.? Okay. Thank you. Yes, Councillor King?
Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. I guess the question is that for 12 months of the year or 4 months of the year or forever? Is there a time limit to that permit?
I think it's only when our water restrictions apply. Is that correct?
It would only be, during water restrictions.
During
Should that be put into the motion? Sure.
No, because
This is added
at other points in time,
Okay.
they can do it.
Okay.
That's true, yeah.
And yes, Councillor Youngberg?
Thank you. Ms. Scott, did it say personal misting devices?
I think we need to say just misting devices.
Yes, I think it should just say misting devices. Okay.
Ooh, that opens it up to a big...
Are we ready for the question? Oh, Councillor Rhodes, go ahead.
Well, I have to speak against this motion because how ridiculous would it be for me to support it if, after my previous motion, but I will take this opportunity just to say that every ounce of water that we can conserve is so important in our community, and I don't have any strong feelings about my motion being defeated or anything like that. But it is an important step towards water conservation. It's probably something that we're going to have to make part of our lifestyle in the future and that type of thing. So I won't be putting my hands up, but that's the reason why. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. We understand. Okay, so the motion is, it has been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion? Against the motion? Thank you. Thank you to everyone. That's, as the people sitting in the audience today can understand, it is a very tricky issue that we're dealing with, and we hope to have rain soon.
And they're all still awake.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, okay. And the next item is the Regional District of Okanagan, Similkameen, and Museum lease. Mr. Remenko.
The Regional District and the Town of Osoyoos have a building lease with Home Hardware with a slated September 30th, 2016 expiry date. After this date, the Osoyoos Museum Society is to lease the building from the Regional District to operate the museum. Home builders have requested a lease extension to September 30th, lease extension from September 30th, 2016 to December 31st, 2019. Council had previously agreed to this extension. Attached, please find the following documents: a lease amendment agreement, a mutual release and termination agreement, and another lease agreement. These documents have been developed by the Regional District Legal Counsel. The documents provide the following functions. The lease amendment agreement amends the existing lease between the town and the regional district and home builders until December 31st, 2019. The mutual release and termination agreement terminates the previous lease agreement between the regional district and the Osoyoos Museum Society. The third document, the lease agreement, this is a new lease between the regional district and the Museum Society with a commencement date of January 1st, 2020. The regional district will not enter into these agreements without a resolution from town council that they support the documentation. In terms of implications, the community will benefit from the development of a new museum. Organizationally, there's none. Budget, there's none. Significant dates, the documentation be in place as soon as possible to enable the implementation of the lease changes. Options, council provides individual resolutions supporting each of the agreements, the lease amendment agreement, the mutual release and termination agreement, and the lease amendment. Number 2, council provides resolutions supporting specific name documents. And 3, council passes a resolution not supporting any of the documents and sends them back to the regional district for changes. In terms of recommendation, the administration recommends option number 1. These documents have been developed by the regional district legal counsel and reflect the agreed on dates and processes for lease changes for the home builders and the Osoyoos Museum Society.
Thank you. So, do we want to, would you like to speak? Councillor Rhodes would like to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. Last Friday, I had an opportunity to sit down with the Museum Society and Mark Pendergraft and myself, and had quite a lengthy meeting about a few matters, one of them being the lease agreement between the town, the regional district, and the Museum Society, speaking specifically of the new lease. They asked if there would be an opportunity to negotiate that lease. There were some items in there that they felt that were necessary for discussion. If we move forward with the recommendation that's in front of us right now, that would in effect kind of remove that opportunity from the Museum Society. So I would like to offer a motion based pretty much on the wording of the recommendation, but taking that lease document out. That would specifically be the one that would come into effect in a few years down the road. Some of the logic for removing that out at this point is that it is not time sensitive. Having a few more months or whatever time period it takes to negotiate it, that has no impact on anybody at all. Some of the reasons were to clarify ongoing expenses in the new museum facility, like catastrophic repair bills, if the roof caves in or something like that, or ongoing utility costs and that type of thing. Those are not actually clarified in the lease. Actually, let me clarify that a little bit more. They are on a triple net basis in that lease. Those are some of the points that they would want to negotiate. And I thought that it was a pretty fair thing, and I'd like to offer that resolution, almost identical to everything that's in there, just separating that one document out of there.
I think what we can do is go through each of those 3 parts and vote on them according to this. So you're talking about the lease amendment agreement, the first one. Is that the one that you're... No, not that one.
The actual lease agreement that comes into effect at the termination of the home hardware lease.
Between the regional district and the Osoyoos Museum Society. Yes. Okay, that would be the third one then. Okay, so the first one, the lease amendment agreement, could we deal with that, Councillor Campbell?
Could we not just have a friendly amendment to the motion to say that council provides individual resolutions supporting each of the following agreements, lease amendment agreement, mutual release and termination agreement, and leave it worded that way?
And we could, and it's, according to this, we need to move each one of those separately. So we're going to move individual ones and leave. And I think what Councillor Rhodes is saying, that we do the lease amendment agreement, the mutual release, and we not deal with the lease agreement today. Is that correct?
That works perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is the first one, which is the lease amendment agreement. Are you moving the acceptance of that? That would be Campbell and Rhodes. And would you like to speak to that first? No, okay. Would you like to speak to it? Councillor King.
Yeah, I have a question. With the lease amendment agreement, though, doesn't that really tie up the lease agreement also? Isn't it part of it? If you pass the first one, aren't you kind of locking up the lease agreement?
No, all you're doing is
Changing date?
you're changing. This is the lease. You're amending the lease with the home hardware stores.
Okay.
So the motion needs to read the lease amendment agreement between the RDOS, the Town of Vesuvius, and home hardware stores. So amending this lease provides for home builders to stay in the building until 2019.
Okay.
That's
Thank
what
you.
that lease
Thank
is.
you.
Yeah.
So are we okay with that? All in favor of that? Thank you. That motion carries. The second part is the mutual release and termination agreement, which is between the Regional District and the Museum Society. That one can be, okay, we're okay with that one. Campbell Rhodes, again? No? Yes? Or do you want me to go over here? You always tell me that I don't look this way, and I am.
I was kind of looking for some advice from Mr. Romanko
Okay.
on it. I think he had
Mr. Romanko, is
Well,
there
this particular agreement speaks to the letter of understanding that they have between the RDOS and the Museum Society, and that letter of understanding is the one that allows them to access $50,000 a year, up to $50,000 of the rent money for their activities in terms of developing the new facility. So I really don't think it matters. It would allow them to redo that letter. The bottom line is that it's the lease here that is of utmost importance to the society that they want.
So we're okay with that one then. So did you want to speak to it?
I did.
Yes,
I do.
good. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, I think it was Councillor Rhodes and you, Mayor McKortoff, that took part in the negotiations. I wondered if there was any consideration given to shortening the time and suggesting they lease only until 2018 instead of actually giving them the 3-year renewal.
I believe that we've been through that before, and this was the time period that was agreed on. So I think we'd have to go back. The lawyer has already agreed to it. And I think that one of the things that was written into it was that they would not have, they had to pay until the end of the lease. They could not shorten it. Am I correct?
That's right.
Yeah, there wasn't, like this time, what they wanted to do was get out of the lease early. No, they had to, the lease had to go on till that date.
So
Which, to my mind, is a good thing, because that gives an absolute date for the Museum Society and not be caught like the rest of us were.
I've just been asked several times, why did it have to be 3 years? Why could it not have been 1 year or 2 years, expiring at the end of 17 or 18? So I just am asking, was that part of the discussion? If it wasn't, fine.
And it was a big part of the discussion, and this was what was agreed to by all parties in the end, the 2019. So, so the mutual release and termination agreement, did we get a mover and a seconder on that? Okay, Campbell Rhodes, all in favor. Thank you. And the third one, we are going to postpone for now. Do we need a resolution to take that off? No. Okay, good. Thank you. The next is the UBCM ministerial meetings. Mr. Romanko.
UBCM provides communities limited time meetings with ministers of government departments or civil servants that may assist in providing council members with needed information. Prior to meeting with the ministers, a request must be completed that outlines the topic of discussion and the nature of issue that needs to be addressed. This is also used as a time to provide the provincial government either both a positive or negative feedback on government programs and services. Administration is seeking council direction to identify ministerial meetings to be requested during UBCM. From previous discussions, the following topics will be put forward. One, a Ministry of Transport enforcement assignments between Oliver and Asuyas. Additional items may be brought forward based on administrative meetings with Ministry of Transport representatives at the end of July. 2, resort municipality funding and program direction. 3, the future of provincial involvement in the development of a national park in the area. 4, issues related to provincial funding of victim services. 5, the use of internet voting in the 2018 provincial elections. This item was brought to the July 6th Committee of the Whole meeting, and administration received direction to bring the item for final consideration at the July 20th Council meeting. In terms of implications, community benefits from council members meeting directly with provincial ministers and high-level staff. Organizationally, the staff resources to develop the reports needed to send to the province. No budget. The meeting request must be in prior to mid-August, and the option presented, council provides additional topics for meeting requests. And the second one, the council approves the above noted list for meeting requests.
Thank you very much. Those were the items that we had mentioned. Does anybody have anything? Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. Typically at most UBCMs there's an opportunity to meet with the Premier as well, and we never really discussed that, so if we have a big ticket item we should be a little bit prepared for that. I know most of the meeting is standing beside your fellow councillors and the mayor to have a picture taken with the Premier, but sometimes they can be a little bit more effective than that. And I would like to suggest maybe having some preparation words for the national park situation. I know there'll be some redundancy because we're going to meet with the minister as well, or any other topic. Discussions with the Premier are very, very hard to come by. So if you get 2 or 3 minutes to sit down and talk to her, you should be somewhat prepared to provide her with a subject of some kind.
So is that the subject that you think we should bring up with the...
It's the one that comes to mind, and...
There's certainly a lot of information out on Oliver Daily News, Asuyas Daily News, the paper. It seems to be picking up a little momentum sometimes, and then it dies down a bit. So maybe it would be a good thing, if that's possible, to add the Premier in there. Could we do that?
I will put it on the list if that's what council so directs.
And then we might get a gold star. Okay, so Councillor Rhodes, are you suggesting that to approve one of these options and include the Premier in it as well?
Yeah, just if we're provided with an opportunity, it's good to be prepared, and we didn't discuss that. Perhaps maybe that's changed in the last year, so I don't know, but usually you do get an opportunity to talk to them.
No, there was a call that came out for Premier meetings with the Premiers as well.
Okay.
With the Premier.
Okay, yes. Councillor Youngberg?
I'll make the motion. Council approves the above noted list for to include the Premier for meeting requests.
Thank you. Councillor King, are you seconding that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Did you want to speak to it first? Sorry.
Yeah, I did actually. I wanted to possibly make an amendment to that and add the Transportation Minister.
The MOT is
there.
Ministry of Transport.
Ministry of Transportation,
Oh, the
number 1.
MOT, okay.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
already on the list.
Yeah, okay.
Was there something specific other than what's here with signage? And as I mentioned at the Committee of the Whole meeting, we're meeting with Ministry of Transport officials at the end of the month to talk about stormwater management on Main Street, and also another outstanding issue that we have with some work that they want us to do on 87th Street out in the regional district. So if there's anything else that...
Yeah, I was kind of relating around airport issues.
Around airport issues, can you clarify?
To relate to, see the pros and cons of funding in the province to do something about our airport?
Okay,
I'm not sure that, I mean, we have already, at this point, had a resolution that we were not going to support that. Until we change that, I'm not sure what we could ask for.
Okay.
I think we need to, we'd have to deal with that one first, and then come up with something to bring to the table on that one.
All right. Just learning the process.
Okay, so all in favor of, do you have that, Ms. Scott? Have you got everything on down there? Okay. Thank you. All in favor of the motion? Thank you. That's carried. Notice of motion, I don't think we have any of those. And then it would be general accounts. So general, Sun Bowl Arena cash accounts and net payroll accounts on July the 20th, representing balances of the following funds. General cash requirements, $312,498.86. Sun Bowl cash requirements of $2,020.54, and net payroll accounts of $101,013.89. So the first two, the general cash and the cash requirements, are to be what's the wording? Adopted by consensus, and the payroll accounts are received for information. Okay, thank you. We now have the CAO report. Is there any committee reports first? No? Okay, CAO report.
thank you, Mayor McKortoff. A few of the items that we've been involved in over the last couple of weeks, starting with the community services. The Sun Bowl Arena officially opens for the summer ice on July 17th, and public skating times are posted on the town's website. I'm happy to announce that we were approved for the Enabling Access Grant through the Government of Canada. This grant was applied for by our Director of Community Services, Gerald Davies. The grant was for our Tot playground, and we were approved for $40,000. So the $40,000 grant will go with our $25,000 budgeted, so that we can develop a fully accessible playground for kids that are challenged. So we've got a year to do that, and so we'll be in the process of working with the Community Services Board to choose a final location. I know in the initial stages of the discussion of this project, we were looking at expanding our playground apparatus out at Lions Beach, because it's such a popular family area. But that'll be taken to the Community Services Board for discussion and brought back to Council eventually. The Cactus Kids Day Camp is in full swing, and they're averaging between 30 and 35 children daily. They held a family event at the Splash Park on Wednesday, July 15th, and had about 100 people attend, thanks to AG Foods for donating and cooking the hot dogs. And Desert Park grandstands are progressing. Concrete landing railings and stairs are left to complete. Corporate Services was busy doing a number of housekeeping items that keep our operation going, as well as working with our bylaw enforcement and responding to all the inquiries there. Finance has been digging out of the pile from tax season, preparing pending tax sale notices. 23 properties are subject to tax sale at this time, approximately 10 more than usual. A few tax penalties reductions requests will be coming to Council in August, and they're also preparing income statements for Council, income statements to June for Council. Planning and Development, Stantec has been retained to prepare a Parks and Trails Master Plan with strong public engagement, including a planning charrette, public open house, and online surveys. And we'll be meeting, our first meeting with the Stantec will be tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 1 o'clock.
Tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Myself, been busy with interviews related to the Director of Operations and the Senior Planner replacements. meeting. I had a meeting with MMBC to discuss MMBC issues and looking to see if they'd be changing the program to address some of those issues, but I won't hold my breath over that one. We're going to be starting business planning for 2016, so doing some preliminary work in that area, and also met with Destination Osoyoos relating to assisting with the resort municipality annual report. So that's my report for today.
Thank you. I think we need to approve the adoption of Mr. Romenko's report. Am I correct? Thank you. Campbell, Rhodes, all in favor? Thank you. And on to councillors' reports. Councillor Youngberg.
Thank you. It's been a little slow for me the last couple of weeks since I've been away. So I will only just hope that the community cooperates with our watering situation that we have. I just totally agree with Councillor Rhodes that, you know, we do have to be very responsible. And so I'm hoping everyone helps us in that area so we're not having to send our bylaw officers all over the community and waste taxpayers' money in that regard. So Desert Park, our horse races are on August the 8th and the 22nd. And so we are hoping that everybody knows about them, invites their friends. The grandstand is almost completed and it will be opened. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of people excited about that since they'll have a place to sit this year.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. Well, I have nothing to report today. My whole report is going to be based on water restrictions, and I was going to rant and rave, but I had lots of opportunity to do that today. So thank you. I'll just take a pass on that.
And we do thank you for your thoughts on water restrictions, because you're very eloquent about your expressing your views, so we appreciate that. Councillor Campbell.
Okay, I'll try to be eloquent as well. I actually don't have a lot to report. I've been away, as is Councillor Youngberg, for most of the time since the past council meeting. I do want to say that it's heartbreaking reading headlines almost daily now regarding highway accidents, and I just urge everybody to take their time and be extremely careful on 97 and 3 or anywhere where you're driving. You know, these news postings are becoming more frequent weekly, so if everyone can just take a little extra care.
Thank you. Good point. Councillor King.
I guess it's really only been a really hot and dry summer. I just encourage to be aware of putting your cigarettes out of your smoker or around campfires that aren't allowed right now. And I do emphasize about Desert Park Grandstand, looking forward to seeing it be open for August 8th. And as you know, it only sits so many people, and it's a first come first basis, so get there early. 1 o'clock is post time.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll all be there. So I haven't been on holiday down to Mexico like a couple of them, but unfortunately, but I have been at a couple of events over the last 2 weeks. I was in the Oliver Parade. I asked my neighbor if she would like to be the chauffeur for the mayor, and in my car, my little Miata, and she jumped at it, so she drove me in the parade, so that was fun.
Was there a mayor's family wearing t-shirts as well?
No, okay. No t-shirts on that one. And I was also went over to Castlegar last week for the Highway 3 Coalition. This is a meeting held twice a year, and it's the mayors from Highway 3 to Crow's Nest Pass, from Hope over to the Alberta border. So we all met and actually had 4 or 5 people there talking about the 10-year transportation plan, not just roads but bridges and airports and train travel and all that. So it was interesting, and it was very nice to meet the other mayors that I hadn't met before. I only knew a few of them. So that was last week, and it's already been mentioned that accidents on the road around here we seem to hear them every day on the news and on the radio. I just want to say that the 2 big ones that we've had here in Osoyoos, one being the plane that landed on the highway, and the other one, the bus accident up by Elk Ranch the other day, despite the fact that there are some people on holiday and it was a little bit confusing at times, I have to say a huge thank you to town staff, to the fire department, to the RCMP, and to Argo Road Maintenance for getting in the act very quickly, dealing with things in a very smooth manner, and you know, I have nothing but praise for all of them. When I came to the end of the accident with the plane, I talked to the RCMP at the beginning. The reason was that I was in Penticton at the time, and I had a couple of calls from radio stations in Vancouver asking me to comment on it, and I said I didn't know anything about it because I was in Penticton. But I did get down, talk to the RCMP, and then at the other end I went around the edge and talked to some of the firemen. And they looked at me and said, "Oh, good, does this mean that you can stay here and we can go home and get in the shower?" And I said, "Absolutely not. We have watering restrictions on and you can't do that." But they did have enough water to drink, so we made sure of that. And I do know that there were all kinds of people in the town that were involved with the bus accident the other day. Mr. Romanko was over at the Sonora. Casey Brower went up in the town bus to pick up the kids that were in the bus, brought them back to the Sonora. AG Foods provided a bunch of food for them all. The town provided pizza, and a bus came over and picked them up. So I just say thank you to everybody for a job well done. Another one I'd like to say thank you to is Pastor Phil and the Baptist Church. They have done a phenomenal job, as usual, of not only running the food bank, but providing washers and dryers over there at the church for some of our transient workers. And I saw a picture in the paper last week that there was a church from, I think from Abbotsford, that was involved with the Baptist Church here, and they put on a wonderful dinner. I think they put on several of them. This was a steak dinner, which I don't get very often either. But anyway, I'm sure they all enjoyed it. They all looked happy, and we just want to thank the Baptist Church for all the work that they do in helping a lot of the people that are in town and need a good home-cooked meal. And the other thing is puncture vine, and I've had several people mention this to me and say, you know, there's so much puncture vine around, what can you do about it? And I said, you know what, quite frankly, when I see it, I put on my gloves and I go out and pick it up and try and get rid of it. And I think that's really the only way that you can do it. So if you see puncture vine around, please help us, help everybody, because tires, bike tires and car tires can be damaged badly by puncture vine, and we do have it here. So that's all that I had, and we've certainly had a lot of issues today about watering. So we just hope people are being really careful and thinking about it, and trying to cut down on the use of water for everybody's sake. And we are not going to meet at the beginning of August. That meeting is canceled around the long weekend, so we are hoping that everybody has a good month, that we get some rain, and that you enjoy your company and stay hydrated, and we will see you in a month. Thank you very much. Oh, do we need a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Oh, no, I have to use these two. Campbell, Rhodes, all in favor. Thank you very much.